Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that we made it. Yay. This is the Daily Medicine transmission for Tuesday, July 6, 2021. I hope everyone had a wonderful, fulfilling 4th of July weekend. Are you feeling a little rough around the edges right now? There may be some explanation for that other than post-celebratory hangovers and whatnot. But it's great to have you here. Welcome back to my subscribers and my regular viewing community. It's so great to have you here. It's great to be back. I'm excited to be back into this space. Hello, Angus. And if you're new here, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here. And as always, whenever you like, subscribe, share, and comment on this content, it really does actually support independent content creators like myself. So let's get right into it today. There's a couple things that I want to bring up. Angus wants to come hang out for a little bit too. They've been especially very playful. The kitties have been very playful, I don't like to say needy because we all need love and affection, don't we? And we all need connection regardless if we are a plant, animal, or human. But I have noticed they are a great barometer for what's going on around us energetically. And of course, my cats would be especially energetic. Angus is our indigo warrior. He's very curious and mischievous and loves to get into things, but he's been especially playful and very affectionate in the last day or so. So when things are shifting and changing, I usually see it in the animals first before it starts to make its way into the collective. And so there's something that there's some things that I want to address. There was a comment on Telegram over the weekend where somebody had asked, and this has come up before, they had asked, if anybody else was experiencing any kind of physical symptoms that seemed to be outside of the realm of the normal type of reactions and interactions with the world around them. So, if you have any type of chronic health issues, or you tend to have really strong food sensitivities that get triggered, certain inflammatory responses or pain in the body is triggered by certain events, certain circumstances, certain foods, any kind of consumables. But this person was asking if there's something outside of this. And I would say, yes, I would say that absolutely happens. And it has to do, there's probably a number of things that it has to do with, and I'm sure everybody's got their input on this. But what I do want to share about that is there was a massive X-class solar flare that came out of the sun on July 3rd. And as much as we may be feeling a little rough around the edges right now, and perhaps you can even see it in my face, right? You can see the bags under my eyes and the puffiness under my eyes. And yesterday I spent a lot of time just resting and sleeping in the later part of the day, and had a tremendous headache. And it always happens when there's massive solar activity. That tends to be the response that my body has to really strong, solar activity. And so I want to share with you what happened so that you can get an idea what to expect when this is occurring. So lots of people tend to make a reference to the Schumann Resonance, and I will tell you what, it was not very active. There were a couple blips at that time, and there was a blip today that spiked up to about 40 hertz, but it's been really quiet, and that's kind of concerning when the electromagnetic field of the planet is not responding to incredible amounts of solar wind and activity and solar weather. That usually is our buffer of protection. And when the earth is not really responding to that, it is concerning and interesting. And today's transmission was a very, very very short, distinct, channeled message, let there be light. And that is in reference to, there's a reference to many things in terms of what that means. But I do feel like that the earth herself obviously has an intelligence. The Schumann resonance is the as a result of the heartbeat of the planet herself, right, is the electromagnetic field that is emitted from the heartbeat of the planet, just like our heartbeat. And our heart itself emits an electromagnetic field because our heart is an electrical pump. So when that Schumann resonance is not offering that incredible electromagnetic field, there is a lot of photonic energy, right? Light, high, and plasma that gets into the atmosphere and gets through into the organic nature of it all. So I just want to show you, let's kind of look into it, and then we'll look at the reading today and unpack this message, this channel message of let there be light in a more esoteric and spiritual archetypal way. And then we'll look at the chart for yesterday and today, because there are some very significant transits that have been happening pretty much throughout the whole weekend. The sun is in conjunction with Sirius, and the fact that we are getting incredible amounts of an X-class solar flare, and it blacked out communications equipment. It had a really strong impact magnetically as well. And so when the sun is in conjunction with Sirius and at the same time is emitting this incredible energy out, it has so much more of an impact, I feel like, in terms of the, what the emission is from the star of Sirius, right? That light is still reaching us. That's why we even see it. And so having that light maybe pass through the sun in some ways in that conjunction may have had an impact. So we can only speculate at this point as we develop and collect information and data and evidence, and but our gut will always tell us what's going on, always, right? Our intuition will always tell us what's going on. So it's important to tap into that. So what I do want to show you, though, in case you are feeling it, right? You're having headaches, inflammation in the body, having a hard time sleeping, or completely, the circuitry is burnt out. And this was a weekend that was very high energy in general, a lot of celebration, a lot of potentially, consumables that aren't really that great for the body. So that can always kind of dampen our ability to withstand some of this higher energy too, all kind of coming together. But what I want to do, I do want to show you here. Let's, well, this is the chart for today, but let's look at the Schumann, right? So I want to show you here. You can see that what we're looking at here as I adjust this for you. There we go. We are looking at the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. So this is today. We saw a spike up to 40 hertz. With the Schumann, and there was a small spike on the 4th, late on the 4th into the 5th, at about 26 hertz. And then you can see here that early in the 4th was also a spike. And I'm going to scroll down to show you past all of their advertising as well, because you can see here right in this area, make sure that this is there we go. You can see right in this area on the 3rd that there was a small spike, which is when the solar flare left the planet. So it does take some time for that light to get from the sun to the planet and make an impact. And so as we saw that there were these blips along the way, within, from the 3rd to the 4th and the 5th and now to the 6th, there is another much stronger spike in the Schumann resonance. So what exactly does that mean? It means that the energy, right, the frequency of the electromagnetic field, which is just a frequency, it's just a term to measure oscillations per second. The more oscillations of a wave per second, the higher amount of energy there is brought about, right? That makes sense, I hope, to you, right? More wavelengths per second means a higher intensity of energy per second, so a higher frequency. The electromagnetic field, higher frequency, much more of a barrier or a buffer, right? It is a stronger resonance. And so even today, that's been the highest, but it's been pretty mellow for the most part. We aren't getting these massive spikes lately of like 100 hertz or more, sometimes like just thousands of them that just defy all of our our current idea of how this all works. So I just want to point that out. If you have been feeling it, I know I did, and it was pretty substantial. So when people ask about that, and they ask about what it is that, here, I'll bring this back here. There we go. When they ask about, are there, they call them Ascension Symptoms, but, we can demystify this a little bit and bring it back down to something that's way more observable and less mystified, I think, and vague, because that vagueness is really a way to kind of, bypass and hijack some of these very natural and very observable types of events, Ascension Symptoms. But that is what they call them, Ascension Symptoms, is because we are being bombarded with higher amounts of energy. And what does this serve to do? Well, it's very likely that it serves to make an impact on our genetic structure, on our DNA. We know for a fact now that exposure to higher amounts of radiation is going to cause mutations in the genetic code, right? In the actual structure of the DNA itself. And so the DNA being the blueprint for how the body builds cells, right? And proteins. This is all what the DNA is. It's just a blueprint. It just says, okay, this is how we're going to build these cells and how we're going to build these proteins and what they're going to do. So when the DNA is exposed to higher levels of radiation, which is just another word for light energy, electromagnetic radiation, just light energy, when it's exposed to higher amounts of a higher frequency of radiation, a higher frequency of electromagnetic radiation, it changes the genetic structure, which then changes the blueprint of how our body creates things like proteins that build the cells. So, and cells build tissues, tissues build organs, organs make up the organism, right? And function in our systems. That's how our systems, all of our systems, body systems are based on, the structure of the organs, and they're based on tissues, tissues based on cells, cells based on proteins, and proteins based on genetic coding. So when we get bombarded with a higher frequency of radiation, then of course we're going to start feeling that, DNA upgrade. Now there are other ways to do this using vibration through sound, right? Through acoustics and through sound healing. This is another way to use the, frequency of a sound wave versus the frequency of a light wave in order to do the same thing, which is why sound healing is so effective in actual healing on a physical level, emotional level, spiritual level, energetic level. So I just want to address that because it was a very strong solar flare that came in. Or it was a very strong X-class solar flare. And there are more CMEs that are coming. So we can expect that there may be more energy. But it's interesting to me that the Earth, because right now mainstream science and solar science makes that connection between the solar weather and the electromagnetic field of the planet. And to get such a strong flare, right? To get so much high energy solar weather coming and hitting the Earth with very little electromagnetic buffering. That's interesting. Now, people, like I said, say it's concerning, especially the scientists that are involved in this type of study. What if? This is just a what if. What if the intelligence of the planet is allowing for this higher radiation to come in and make an impact? And so let there be light, right? When light comes in, we have knowledge. When light comes in, we become awakened. When light comes in, our genetic structure upgrades. So it's just a thought, right? But in the meantime, we still have to live with the physical nature of those types of situations. And that's what we're going through right now in real time, this evolution in real time of our organic biological structure that's related to chemistry, it's related to physics, because, light is related to chemistry and it's related to physics. So just something to consider as we're, kind of going through these ascension symptoms and what it feels like and the discomfort that we may be feeling. It may be part of this process where we are upgrading. So that's just something that I wanted to bring to the table because it's come up many times. And the Schumann Resonance is it's such a hot topic when it comes to this spiritual awakening community, which is really just humanity. Let's be real here. We're not trying to necessarily separate one faction of people from another. That certainly is a strategy to keep us all in division, right? We need to come together even in our differences in order to realize that humanity is ascending together, whether we like it or not, right? And if we don't like it, then we will fulfill our karmic contracts in a different way. And that's something that's a conversation for a different time. So let's look at the reading today, because when we talk about letting the light come in, we saw that there was a lot of opportunity over the weekend to really kind of wipe clean. And I talked about this actually. I posted some things at the beginning of the weekend about culture as your operating system and how we have to completely debug that operating system and maybe completely wipe it clean off of our hard drive and install something new potentially. And there's and it's on my Telegram. And I posted it. Maybe I'll post it here on or on Facebook too. But it's just an 8-minute video clip of Terence McKenna, who was the one that really made the connection as the culture as an operating system and thinking about our minds and our brains in a digital type of way, which we're seeing now is so much more relevant than even when he was talking about it and talking about how we need a technician. And who are the technicians but the shamans, right? And they utilize natural technology, right? The plant medicine, for instance, through ayahuasca, through psilocybin, right? Whatever is going to elicit DMT. And our brains naturally do this. And I feel like we are going to move to a point where we naturally are able to create this process. And this has to do with the pineal gland. This has to do with melatonin being released and other types of natural, not to say that plant medicine isn't natural. It's very much one of the most natural ways to wipe our operating system clean in order to have a much more transparent and direct connection to source and our consciousness, and to see how much our culture is an operating system that is, the mediating factor for everything that we experience. So, but the shamans are the tech, somebody that is more knowledgeable, somebody who has the innate knowing of how to do this and has been trained, right? And in a lot of ways, the shaman has been trained as a result of their own experiences, right? The death, near-death experiences, an illness that that leads the shaman to having, being brought to the brink of death. There are lots of different ways that the shaman is chosen and goes through their dark night in order to come out as the tech, right? The shamanic tech, in order to guide people through the process of wiping the operating system that has been programming us. And we have been programmed by for so long. And it's just gotten so much easier to program people through television, obviously. And now social media is just a whole new level. And it's really essential that if we're on this pathway of awakening, and especially if we're at the front line here of this process, being an anchor and a guide and a guiding light and a lighthouse, that we are very real about this with ourselves and acknowledge that we have to do this work for ourselves. Anyway, so Let There Be Light is so many levels today, and certainly illumination in terms of what has been hidden. And Neptune, Neptune retrograde. I said this last week, right? This is, people's pants pulling down and bare asses being shown. And that's all of us. We have to see things very clearly. And Neptune being retrograde is allowing for this to happen. The fog is clearing and the false illusions are losing all of their attraction. We have to see things for what they are in this lucid moment here with Neptune retrograde. And as we're going to see today, Mercury, now direct, about to leave its post-retrograde shadow is in a square with Mercury today. So there's a lot of confusion, but is there? With Mercury retrograde, is there a lot of confusion, or are we just having to really feel the tension there of wanting to use these inhibiting circumstances in order to transcend the situation, but also having to face very strongly what Neptune does, which is dissolves everything it touches. And in this case, it dissolves everything it touches in terms of our minds, right? Mercury and knowledge and information and data and the way we conceptualize reality. We're really going to that mutable square, thankfully, allows for malleability and change, but it also allows for us to be very confused if we're not mindful of it. So let's look at the reading first and see what we have going on here. Let's do that. There we go. Because you're going to see here that there is some returning characters as usual. When we start getting a lot of this, when we start getting a lot of these returning symbols in these readings in a chronological order, or in positions that seem to track with each other, we know we're really kind of in the zone right now in terms of what they represent. So when we look at today, we see all major arcana across the board here: the Fool, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Tower reverse. So we know our Tower is come up so many times last week and is still part of this process. And it does feel like that it's just kind of a spiraling or more of a rhythmic process of this Tower moment, these sudden breakouts, these sudden realizations that are coming around, and then it gets deeper and it gets deeper, right? That Pluto retrograde going back over the old territory and pulling up more of the roots, pulling out more of the stuff that needs to be dealt with. One thing I did over the weekend, worked on my property, and there's this big pile of garbage that's just been accumulating, stuff that won't fit into our normal garbage can. And we recently got a dumpster. And so one of the things we did is just took advantage of some extra time to, schlep that stuff over to the dumpster. And when you're pulling stuff out of a garbage pile that's been sitting for a really long time, it's nasty, right? It's gross. It's waterlogged. There is all kinds of stuff growing under there. And this Pluto retrograde, it is a gross, disgusting process to have to do this. And it's usually not for the faint of heart, but you get in there, you put your gloves on, and you do what needs to be done, and then you clear that space away. And that Pluto retrograde is a big part of this. So we also see clearing the way. That's been a big part of the last week or so. So we know now at the top of our awareness is this process of clearing away. And so burning away what doesn't need to be there, what's in our way, putting our energy and time and motivation into clearing our obstacles so that we can get somewhere. So let's start with the Fool, because we haven't seen our Fool in a while. And this is our causal factor, right? This is our innocence and our gut. Uranus and Mercury put together, right? Spontaneous, curious, madness in some ways, the Fool, right? This is this is that beginner's mind here. Is the Fool is open to every and all possibilities, open to an infinite future, right? And a spirit that follows its intuition, its instinct, and its gut, right? And is considered a fool because is in fact open to all possibilities and does seem kind of crazy to those who are entrenched in that karmic trench, right? People who are entrenched in the operating system and haven't actually done what the Fool has done, which is wiped it completely clean and is just having a very transparent, authentic, very direct experience with their own spirit. So this also represents true innocence. And I do feel like this causal factor here of the Fool, especially the Sun was in a sextile to Uranus yesterday was in a sextile to Uranus in conjunction with Sirius, the sun in conjunction with Sirius in a sextile, that 60-degree angle with Uranus. This really brought us to this completely transparent, this beginner's mind, really checking our gut. This is a direct connection to source and our intuition. And you can see that the Fool is smiling. That Fool is not even remotely concerned about anything else. And it's zero, right? There, the beginning and the end, the cycle in it itself. As you can see here, right? You have the dragonfly, this spiral energy that is surrounding the Fool, even kind of surrounding, wrapped around its neck. It's got the horns. It's got here this crystal pyramid on the top of the crown chakra, holding the grain, holding the crystal. There's a dove here, butterfly, right? And then you have, this is definitely my cats, right? My cats do this all the time. They jump on me and they start like biting me and like nibbling me. And it's playful, and the Fool has no care whatsoever. Also here you can see that there is like, this looks like Earth Star Chakra. You have the sun here at the sacral chakra as well. It's just connected to everything and nothing at the same time. So we have this causal factor. So have you felt over the weekend that this infusion of higher energy from the sun that hasn't really been buffeted very much by the Schumann resonance or by the electromagnetic field, as evidenced by the Schumann resonance not doing too much? It's clearing away all of the preconceived ideas and having us be in this kind of position like a total fool. And those who haven't done this, we do seem like the fool. And so again, the beginner's mind is the causal factor here. And we see where things are going to lead when we allow ourselves to trust just our gut. We know that energetically everything is already presented to us and we have a direct connection, but we have to clear everything else away in order for that to happen. So let's suppose here that this is in fact the causal factor, and this Fool that we've embraced is now leading to this moment here of the Wheel of Fortune. Also, it is reversed. So we have a 0 and then we have a 10, right? The Wheel of Fortune is the 10 because it's the beginning and end of a cycle, just like the Wheel of Fortune is just always turning. And what's interesting about this, you have the Sphinx on the top, right? Which is actually part of our reading here. We have the Uriel and the Sphinx down here. And we have the snake that's wrapped around, right? So it's never going to fall off. And you see even this character here that actually is kind of has the snake tail and is falling off of seemingly falling off, is holding what looks like an ankh actually, seemingly falling off, but it's wrapped around here. So it's not really falling off. It's just kind of slipping off as the wheel turns. Now it is reversed. And so, it's an unexpected turn of fortune a lot of times when the Wheel of Fortune is reversed. And so the masters of karma. So it's important in this moment to talk about fate and destiny, because fate is not something that is superimposed onto us. It really is the result of what we've already done. It's a cause and effect relationship, much like this horizontal axis here of cause and effect. So we have an action and then or a behavior or a thought form or whatever, and then we have circumstances in the present moment, maybe outside of our control, but based on what we've already done, facing this moment, we're going to get somewhere. This is what fate is. It's not something that we have no control over. In fact, we have all the control over it. It has to do with our past actions in reference to what is happening now, leading to a very specific outcome, right? Now, the wheel turning is the part we don't have control over necessarily. And Jupiter is what rules this card, right? Because Jupiter throws that bolt of lightning. And we talked about this on the transmission before the weekend about how Jupiter is retrograde in Pisces, but was in that sextile with the moon in Taurus at the electrical storm, right? Harnessing the thunderbolt and directing at those who really have incurred Jupiter's wrath, right? Because Jupiter, for as much of it's benevolent and is an advocate, who and what Jupiter is advocating for is the real question here. And if you've pissed Jupiter off in any way, you rest assured, he's going to turn that wheel, he's going to throw that lightning bolt, and you're just going to have to live with it. And again, pants being pulled down, my friends. And this goes for everybody. And when we have some humility and we are able to acknowledge how we've got ourselves into the position we are in, even if it's outside of our control and it's uncomfortable, especially reversed, we have the ability to realize actual facts. And maybe hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? And so maybe it's, we kind of, the wheel has turned and changed position, but maybe it allows us at that moment to see something that we didn't see in the same way, changing our perspective. So everything is always in motion here, right? It's this constant expansion that Jupiter represents, right? The big picture, and always expanding, or the wheel always turning. Everything is always in motion. There's no stasis in the universe. Like that's, even if there is, it's all that in itself is the motion. So this, in some ways, a change for the worse, right? When it's reversed, there is fatalism. We have no control over it. It's too late. Like things have already transpired, and we have to live with and accept the consequences of our own actions in reference to the change of the wheel, right? It's really foolish. Ha 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 ha. It's really foolish, actually, not in a good way, to think that things aren't going to change. And so it's always important to act of the highest integrity, to always be honest, to be authentic, and to have some humility, because you don't know what's going to happen. And eventually your pants you just end up pulling your own pants down, to be perfectly honest. This also can be an inner turn, right? Something within us is turning as a result of, the beginner's mind being embraced, right? We wipe clean our programming. We allow ourselves to have a direct connection to our intuition and our instinct and our gut. We are open to whatever happens. And then we come to this present moment where there is an inner turn, right, within us, something that we can't anticipate. But I do feel like in some ways this is a very challenging turn of the wheel because it's reversed. Now, what's running in the background here, which is really going to work in our direction, but we have to be aware of it, is the Akashic Field, the one of forces. So where we are energetically rooted, what's happening in the background, right? There's that operating system. But something even deeper is the Akashic Field. It is the field from which everything is created from. Everything that ever has been and will be is part of the Akashic Field. And so all life, all power, all experiences, everything comes from this field, and it's vibratory. So whatever we give our attention to is in fact going to eventually manifest. And what we give our attention to is not necessarily our conscious awareness. That's just the last resort. Right, or the last step, right? The last step of this manifestation process and art is the conscious awareness of our thoughts and our behaviors and our actions. It is starting in the subconscious. Just like when you have physical symptoms in the body of an illness, it's already energetically been in place long enough. That's the last manifestation, is the physical nature of it. And so we have to be very aware that at the root of things always is this field of experience, or this field of consciousness that will in fact manifest and solidify into matter eventually. And at the root of it is anything we want to create is in our own power. And it's not until humanity fully realizes their own power within relation to this Akashic Field that we're actually going to make a change, right? And again, the Fool allows us to engage directly with the Akashic Field because it allows us to have a direct connection to our instinct and our gut. And so the Akashic Field, right? We can feel the potential of whatever is transpiring in an energetic fashion, but we also can create whatever we want. We are, in fact, the masters of our own reality, and it comes from our ability to tap into the Akashic Field and manifest, right? Manifest, but it's not coming from our conscious thoughts. That is just the result of working at a very deep level. This is why meditation and prayer are so important to bring into your daily practice. Yoga Nidra is a really easy way to do this, and I really encourage people to familiarize yourselves with Yoga Nidra, because it is like the self-imposed hypnosis. You plant the seeds in your subconscious through a guided meditation, and then you're able to start seeing that manifest through your actions, through your thoughts, and where your attention goes. So when it comes to where our attention is, though, we do know now that we are clearing the way. And so at the base here of the subconscious, this Akashic field moving up in through our spinal, vertical axis of power here into the heart of the moment, where there is a very challenging turn of the wheel here. Very challenging. Maybe not for all people, and it could be an inner turn of the wheel. It could just be like, whoa, something really changed in me. And if there is an increased amount of photonic energy coming in, that could be very well a shift in our own DNA structure, our own energetic resonance that shifts, right? We didn't control what happens with the sun necessarily, but we do allow for a blank canvas in some ways with the Fool in order for that to make an impact. And so now our awareness is the clearing of the way. So we do see that there is an obstacle. We are aware of it. We realize that it's only going to be us. It's only going to be us that gets out of that carriage and starts like clearing it away and being diligent, using our resources, whatever they are, and trusting that we can do the job ahead of us, okay? But this is very much an acknowledgement that there's something that does need to be cleared away. Either it's limiting thought forms, a very limiting or negative perspective, right? That victim mentality. If we keep putting ourselves into that perspective over and over and over again, then we do know that we will create situations for ourselves where we are reinforced as the victim. So this turn of the wheel, hopefully, I'm hoping, and it does feel like if people are able to see it like this, that we do see that it's only up to us to clear the obstacles. Nobody else is going to get out and do it for us, okay? But this is where a conscious awareness is, and it's coming from this turn of the wheel, right? This shift in the wheel of fortune. And where it's leading, again, here's our tower moment again. Mars is the agent of the tower, and it has now moved from the first half of Leo, which is the combustion, to the release. The second half of Leo is the release, and it's about the storm clearing, right? And so maybe the destruction has happened already, and now it's dissipating. Maybe this tower reversed is that inner sudden realization and breakout. Maybe this tower reversed is just the blind destruction that people participate in when they can't see that they are in charge of their own reality. And they just want to burn it all down because they don't like what they have set up for themselves, right? These are all potentials here that we can see this negative or reverse tower. But Mars is now in this second half of Leo, which is the release part. And it is in a degree specifically that has to do with after the storm ending, the sun shining. So maybe too that we are looking at these sudden breakouts leading to the realization of our own higher self, the link, right? It's like a rainbow coming out after the storm. This is where Mars is. And this can be really motivating for Mars, especially if we've been feeling kind of beat down in that warrior nature and being like, geez, I'm just totally so worn out. I just don't even want to do anything anymore. I just give up. And part of the Fool and part of the Wheel of Fortune and even part of the Tower has this feeling of just giving up and surrendering, right? In a way that is conscious and intentional. So we do see that where we're headed here is this tower moment reversed. So there's a lot of ways we can look at it depending on what's going on in our life and how much we are connected to this Akashic field and the reality that we create these situations. We create our reality. We're in total control of ourselves, right? Now, there's some really good guidance here. Speaking of fire, right? Uriel and the Sphinx. Archangel Uriel is the fire of God. She is related to Antares, the star Antares, which is in a direct conjunction now with asteroid Juno. We're going to talk about this a lot as we go into the astrology of today. But Uriel is the fire of God, not mentioned very much in terms of archangels in the scripture, the Bibles and the scripture. But one thing that you know is that Uriel was had the knowledge of the great disaster, right? The flood, for instance, and only gave that information to those who could hold that information, just like the sting of the scorpion. Right? Just like the sting of the scorpion. Can you hold the sting, right? Can you take in the poison without succumbing to it? The heart of the scorpion. Are you able to hold the truth of the situation as much as painful as it is and as much as it hurts, to allow you to grow and to change and to evolve? Uriel is a guide for this process, but it is not easy. And so Uriel and the Sphinx showing us that, we have to utilize this destructive turn of events, whatever this is for us, and use that energy to really dig in deep about the truth of who we are, right? To put that energy towards clearing the way, for instance. It's kind of interesting that it's down with the Akashic Field, but I think that the reason it's there is because it is the putting that energy into the Akashic Field. And it is on the side here. You can see here that if you look at it more as these columns, you can see that it's on the side of where the tower is going. And the tower moment is very related to Uriel as the fire of God. The destruction of that tower that really was just too narrow and really just based out of ego when in order to get to heaven, right? We can actually build something that will take us up to heaven, like the Tower of Babylon. And so Uriel is giving us can be a real guidance and giving us the energy in order to dig into the mysteries of who we are so we can understand where we've come from. And the idea of Atlantis, whether literal or archetypal, is the Atlantean priest class, whoever they were, right? The leftovers, the survivors of that experience managed to make their way to various places, Egypt being one of them. And Edgar Cayce, in his readings and channelings, also designated the Sphinx is where the Akashic records are held. And so again, literal, archetypal, it doesn't matter. The point is that it is a reference point to our own connection to these past situations. And you don't even have to think of it like literally, because in a multi-dimensional perspective, it's all happening at the same time. And so we know that underneath the Sphinx, if we want to look at the Akashic records, right, the Akashic Field, where we've come from and where we're going, is all available to us, but we need to have the energy and sometimes that destructive element of fire, for as much as it's purifying, and in Antares, the heart of the scorpion, getting right down into the nitty gritty truth. And we really have to pull away the debris, right? And we can use Pluto. We can connect to Pluto, in order to bring this about. And go back to last week's transmissions, right? Durga and Kali, very connected as well to this energy of Pluto retrograde right now. So the tiger that goes along with this, speaking of Durga, because oftentimes she's seen as riding a lion or a tiger. And so this is a very powerful image, right? You can see in the Fool, let's go back just 1 second here. The Fool, what is there? Look at the little tiger that's nipping at the Fool. The Fool isn't even phased, not even phased by it. It's playful. They are companions. The Fool is very connected to its natural element. The tiger is saying you're being called upon to provide leadership, so trust that you're capable of doing so. And you can be a leader not by telling other people what to do, not by telling other people what they should or shouldn't listen to. You are a leader by setting an example. And this example is doing the work to dig down into the core of who you are and realizing that it's there that you manifest from in the Akashic Field. And maybe you're digging down into your own Akash, right? Realizing where where you've come from, realizing your multidimensional perspective. And this tiger, something you have to, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right? It's about knowing when to advance and when to yield, and balancing these forces as well. You can't just keep pushing and pushing and pushing necessarily. Sometimes you have to just sit back and observe, right? It's about being receptive as much as it is being expressive, right? That yin and yang quality. And taking calculated risks. That's another thing, taking a calculated risks. Durga rides the tiger. She is the defender of the people, right? And follow your gut despite disapproval. That's a calculated risk. Last night, I dreamt of being in this very large yoga class, right? All these people sitting together. And all of these people, here for this class, and I'm surrounded by all these people, and everybody's talking and everybody's excited to talk to each other. And I'm surrounded by people who are making certain types of political statements that if they knew that I had the complete opposite one, they may have a different opinion of me. And that's something that, that a lot of people have been personally dealing with for a lot of the last year and a half, especially. And so sometimes you have to take a risk and step out and be an example, right? Stop hiding yourself because you're afraid necessarily of what people are going to say or how they're going to respond to you. And I mean, I have no problem like being human and real about this and coming to terms with the fact that that's still like a blockage for me, because I want to sit back and just kind of let things be as they may and be more observant. But sometimes you have to set the example and just step forward and be like, hey, actually, you know what? You're making an assumption that I'm going to agree with you. And in reality, I actually have a completely opposite perspective. Maybe we can talk about it, but people are so triggered that sometimes it makes it really difficult, and to avoid confrontation, we'll just kind of play it smart. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's why the tiger is about balancing these forces, but it's about setting an example and trusting your gut, and despite disapproval, and using the energy of the truth, that Antares, right, the heart of the scorpion, and Uriel, to really get at the truth, and get down to the core of who you are. And the core of who we are is able to provide leadership if we're able to get down into that core. And something that is along with that, the zebra, right? Let go of your fear. Know that you're safe and protected at all times, right? The zebra is naturally capable of camouflage. Now, Jupiter retrograde, okay, this is important to consider here. Jupiter retrograde in 2 degrees Pisces is about the caution that we need to exercise when we're in a position where everything is connected to everything else. There is no hiding necessarily when it's all part of the same field. And that's part of how you sharpen your discernment, is realizing that when you trust your gut and you connect into the field of consciousness that everything is connected to, there's no hiding. But this also says that let go of your fear. So even if there's no hiding, there is a natural camouflage. There's a natural way of protecting yourself while at the same time being out in the world, right? And when it comes to clearing the way, I think that what happens is that we get caught up in our fear, right? And you see an obstacle and you're like, oh God, and you get all worked up and you create these scenarios in your head, and while you're like getting all worked up and fearful about the situation, you're not actually putting your energy to clearing the obstacle. You're like, oh God, there's this obstacle. I'm never going to get home. Oh gosh, what's going to happen? I'm going to blah, 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 blah. You get it. It spirals out of control. This is saying that fear, your body will tell you when there's actually something to really be afraid of, like a danger to your physical security. Everything else is based on, that operating system that we are using to, engage with the entire world. So this is letting us know to let go of that and realize that real fear will be very, we will know what it's time to be, we will know when it's time to secure ourselves. And in the meantime, we need to just take the energy we have and go out there and clear those obstacles, and not let our fear of being seen or a fear of what could happen get in the way of that, because we want to set a course to a new place. Here's the rainbow, right? That 3 of scrolls. We want to set a course to our new destination, right? And we don't want to limit ourselves. We want to widen the scope. We want to make that connection to from our higher self to our earthly self, right? And there's so many opportunities here for us. I mean, the world literally is our oyster, and we want to set the course, but we can't do that if we're really hyper focused on the obstacle in the way and what we can't do about it. And this turn of fortune and this tower is going to be very difficult for the people who don't embrace this beginner's mind, and certainly don't embrace the the work that needs to be done to getting into the core of who we are and realizing that we're in charge, us, the people, right? Our own self. We connect that we make that connection, right? We allow for that connection. If we just open up to our higher selves, that connection is made, and then everything is available to us, okay? So that's the reading for today, and we're going to look at the chart now so we can see what's going on here in, that's that. Let's see here. Right. We're going to look at the current transits for today. Our moon has moved into Gemini, by the way. Let's see here. There we go. Our moon has moved into Gemini. Mercury is so close to coming out of its post-retrograde shadow. It's going to be happening tomorrow. And in the meantime, like I said, is in a square to a retrograde Neptune. Venus. Wow, Venus is going to move into an opposition to Saturn. We talked about this last week because this is where Mars was. And this is with the Mars aspect, with Saturn and that whole kite and the tension that opposition provided for us to really fly. This is going to be a little bit more challenging, right? Because Mars, is very strong and is very ambitious and brave and is providing a really just like an equal kind of like tension. Venus, on the other hand, this is going to be a little bit more challenging, I think. It's going to lead to a little bit more depression for people. It is going, because she pulls in what she needs. And in some ways, it will, in fact, provide an anchor point, pull away from where Saturn is. But when a Venus is in opposition to Saturn, just in general as a transit, it really puts a lot of strain on relationships. It can be very depressing, right? Because you're wanting to pull in that which you value, that which allows you to feel safe and comfortable in your environment, right? What is harmonious and beautiful, and then the reality, of Saturn. Making the opposition here. So it can be really heavy transit. And we're talking about Leo and Aquarius, right? So individual sovereign nature versus the collective. And this is the same place that Mars had this opposition as well. So this is important to see for what it is, because remember the old sea captain rocking back and forth, right? The quieted mind's recollection of crises and joys long past. So the old sea captain, when it was Mars, was in fact that old sea captain. Well, Venus now is is the rocking chair, right? It is the quieted mind and pulling towards us this rocking and this recollection of all of the pain, all of the joy that we've been through as a sovereign being, right? And how we allow ourselves to fully engage our passion, our creative passion, and our sovereign nature. In opposed to Saturn, I feel like it's going to be a little bit difficult and can be a very heavy transit, even with Venus in this fire sign in Leo, because Saturn is very powerful in Aquarius. It's co-ruler of Aquarius, and so it's and retrograde too. So it's really stronger within us, right? It's something that we're paying way more attention to. So for as much as we value and holding the value of this ability to quiet our mind, to recollect everything that we've been part of, right? To see the big picture of our own creative self-expression and our passion. The opposition to Saturn about, nothing can stop what's coming, and the ability to actually the ability to have that be crystallized in a very strong form within us, it can be very empowering, but I also feel like that it can just be very heavy today. And with Mercury in a square to a retrograde Neptune, again, we're going to have to really lean into this, and it's going to force a change in the way that our mind wants to use inhibiting circumstances in order to transcend the entropy of reality, right? So we have these two aspects that are bringing us to kind of rise above something or utilize the process of rhythm. In both of these cases where Mercury and Venus are, one is the mind, one is our expression, our creative expression and passion of who we are. Both of them are utilizing this rhythm in order to kind of transcend it, to almost go outside of it. And both of these aspects are in both of these positions are in really challenging aspects to larger transpersonal planets, especially Neptune, right? Neptune retrograde, which is making things just so glaringly clear now in terms of our limitations and what we are here to actually do. What is our dharma, and being realistic with ourselves, and where we have screwed up. I mean, really, you know what I mean? We have to, and how it's impacted other people, right? Neptune and Pisces. I mean, there's no distinction between I and other in Pisces, and with Neptune, it's just a surge. It makes it impossible almost to really find any boundaries, and there is no difference between what I do and other people do. So again, our minds and Mercury and the ability to conceptualize reality, wanting to move above these inhibiting circumstances and try to transcend all of this, is just gonna it's just gonna hit with where Neptune is, it's retrograde, and really spin us out if we do not humble ourselves to a certain extent and see how we're right at the end of the post-retrograde shadow. Just keep that in mind. We're not quite out of it yet. So we're still in this shadow period of information that's already been gone over, right? Data that's already been received, and how we may have not been realistic with ourselves, or not really been honest with our limitations in order to really fulfill our dharma. And now we're going to have to deal with that. And the opposition to Saturn, right, with Venus, is that she wants to engage in this rhythm, right, in order to kind of take herself out of the back and forth, right, of everything that we go through as the result of being ourselves. She, in that tension with Saturn in Aquarius, which is, you can't really get away from how the structure of the collective and what it really it's just like the Wheel of Fortune and fate, right? The collective has a cohesion and in Aquarius, and there's no getting around what that structure of that really is and what it means. And so these are difficult. And you can see how the turn of the wheel leading to a tower moment reversed, regardless if we are foolish or not, can be very difficult, and it's really spelled out in the transits today. So we also, like I said, the moon is in Gemini now. So of course, on a personal level in our emotional landscape, it's just, the back and forth, all the mutable ideas, right? All of the curiosity, discovery, exploration, which is it is what it is. And we make no decisions with Gemini, right? We are engaged with the full realm of possibility in terms of information and data and communication in Gemini, but it also really makes it hard to come to a decision at the same time. And so I guess in some ways it's probably a good thing that it's in Gemini while we're dealing with these really uncomfortable and very realistic, having to face reality type of transits today, because it allows us to kind of emotionally not attach to any one perspective or idea, allowing us to kind of move in and out of this space within us, right? And our intuition, right? And the way we adapt, right? It's a mutable air sign with the moon that is our ability to adapt. So what has the moon done earlier today was in a square to Jupiter retrograde. So we do have to there's a part of us that wants to maintain this innocence, be open to the receiving of blessings in some ways, right? For everything that we go out and explore and that we're curious about and discover in Gemini, we also have to create a space in order to receive something. And again, with it in square to Pisces and Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, it's really challenging us to accept the benevolence or accept the it may not seem necessarily like a good thing to be on the other side of Jupiter blasting things wide open, but the square here is challenging us to maybe allow that, and maybe it's our way of adapting. And perhaps just like the tower, it doesn't at first seem like it's actually a good thing, but what it does is break up those structures. Okay, so we each have this opportunity today to kind of embrace this, even if it's been really young. And this was last night. You can see it right here. We have 2 a.m., right? 2 a.m., 1 a.m., Eastern Standard Time. So this is overnight, late last night as well. And then we come into the moon is making meets the North Node, right? So the moon is meeting the North Node out Aldebaran, right? The star that is connected to Archangel Michael, right? We are going in new directions. This is new open territory that the North Node is representing. But at the same time, this is when Juno is meeting the South Node, coming into a conjunction with Antares. And there's a lot of tension here. There's a lot of tension here because we are feeling and adapting to the idea we're heading into new territory and this is where we're going, right? But we have to just feel the tension here with Juno that represents betrayal. She represents obligation. She represents our contractual obligations, our commitments to our relationships and what that means. Betrayal, betrayal, betrayal. When you have it meeting Antares like this, the heart of the Scorpion, this is right on top. And we have to really we have to find the midpoint here. We can't just focus on where we're going as much as we want to without acknowledging where we've been and how we've gotten to this point because of betrayal. And Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, We have to really acknowledge what that is too. And if we want to continue to give our energy and our commitment to a relationship or a paradigm, specifically when we're talking about Sagittarius, these bigger collective paradigms that have served to betray us and haven't been, when we get into the heart of the Scorpion, we have to see the painful truth of the situation. So this is also something that's going to come right up to the surface today as a result of these transits. Then the moon comes around to sextile Venus, right? Sextile Venus, and you know what that sextile is. It's a 60-degree angle of investment. And, this degree that they are coming into, this sextile, Venus is like, I just want to like relax. I just want to let it all go and just like be in my full nature in a very, in a very relaxed environment. I want to go to a party. That's what it is, and it's kind of this sophisticated thing. It's not very innocent. It's not combustive. It's just like, I just want to like let it go and like have fun, right? I just want to relax and have fun and just meet everybody where they are and not think about this for a minute. And the moon at this position, we can really invest this energy that Venus in our relationships specifically into our liberation from the ghosts of the past. We can really liberate ourselves from all of this stuff if we kind of embrace where Venus is in our relationships and, what is worthy to us and valuable. And I would say in this situation, it is our passion. And there's our creative passion and expression and our relationships where we can just let it go and enjoy it and invest this into where we each individually are emotionally. That is wanting to completely liquidate the past, right? We want to liberate ourselves from all of this residual energy of being kept in the dark, kept as in somebody else's control. We can really invest that. And even if the ghosts of the past have to do with, I'm supposed to hate these people, or I'm supposed to push back against this, or I'm supposed to fight this. Maybe we can let go of all of that and really move forward if we embrace where Venus is and allow our passion and our value as individual beings to come together into this like communal situation of just having fun, honestly, and just accepting people where they are. Now the moon comes along, is in a trine to then comes into a trine to that Saturn, right? And that means, you see that there's a trine here, then there's the sextile to Venus, of course, at the same time. And also, while the moon is in a trine with Saturn, it's also in a sextile with Chiron, right? Now, we had the sun in a square to Chiron over the weekend, actually on the 4th of July, when the moon was in Taurus and met Uranus. So this is really challenging our ability to connect into a very permanent truth of who we are in the face of all of this really frustrating energy that is just triggering these victim wounds over and over. And oh my gosh, like it's like a broken record when you see it for what it is, and you're just like, wow, like, are we going to keep banging this drum of being a victim and things not happening fast enough for us, right? And the sun in a conjunction with Sirius, which does represent like the permanence of the truth of who we are, something so vast, it's infinite. He really challenged to this, right? That square really challenged this. Are we going to express ourselves through this connection to the core of who we are, or are we going to continue to allow ourselves to be triggered into a victimhood over and over? And that's everybody needs to come to terms with that. And when the moon met Uranus at the same time, this was that moment of adapting to this upheaval in a very material way. So now that we're here and we have this, again, Chiron's back here, and so it's in a sextile to the moon and will be in a direct trine to Venus tomorrow. But in the meantime, the moon is in a trine to Saturn and is in a sextile to Chiron. So we are, can we find our own fulfillment in this moment, emotionally and intuitively, in our own skill set? Can we adapt to all of these situations by performing some manner of social function that inspires other people, right? Because the third house in Gemini, for as much as it has to do with communication and travel and all that stuff, it has to do with a skill, a technical skill that we learn how to do. And so we fulfill this skill in our own way, and as a result of that, it inspires others. This is in a direct trine to that Saturn retrograde of nothing can stop what's coming, right? And it's so strong and it's so solidified and it's so obvious within us because of that Saturn retrograde. So these two things are finding a lot of traction with each other, right? And it comes from our ability to fulfill our own individual role, our function of what we've learned to do, whatever that is. And then the sextile to Chiron, we invest that into this really frustrated energy that keeps triggering our victim nature and then wants us to be like the savior of everybody else. We can invest this energy in order to temper this fire a little bit and see that the real power that we have is to fulfill this individual skill set that will inspire other people to do exactly the same. So really, really strong ability to heal today. And like I said, the sun is in a conjunction with Sirius still, asteroid Juno in a conjunction with Antares. Of course, the moon is going to cross Aldebaran, and so we have a moment here of adapting and the emotional landscape really connecting to that Archangel Michael archetype, success through integrity. So integrity, I can't stress enough integrity. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes. And what's not okay is to keep covering your tracks or not acknowledging it to yourself because you can't wrap your mind around that maybe something led you astray. And a lot of times it's really just greed and wanting to be the hero and wanting to be right and basing all your self-worth off of that. I mean, man, I'm very thankful that I figured that out a while ago, and because I spent a long time being that person whose self-worth was based on being right about everything, all that Sagittarius. When you let go of that, then it's okay to be wrong, because you're like, wow, I'm going to learn so much more if I'm just like, oh, geez, I was really wrong about that. Or, wow, I let my desire to be the hero, or my desire to be right, or my desire to have it all figured out, or my desire to just acquire resources get in the way of my integrity. So this is a really opportune moment today to just take that energy and our integrity and channel it into actually doing something productive, and fulfilling ourselves by performing the skills to inspire other people, whatever our skill set is. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything that we are here to do. So I'm going to leave it there for today, my friends. I think that we've covered a lot of ground for coming back after a long weekend. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'm so grateful for all of you for being here. If you're interested in a reading or energetic support through Reiki, through shamanic energy work, all can be done through distance. You can go to catalystenergies.net. That's in the description box below. You also can reach out on Telegram and Facebook if you're interested in keeping in touch through social media. And that's also in the description box below. So take care of yourselves, guys. Take very good care of yourselves. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Make sure that you are bringing your practice in on a daily basis in order to reconnect with your deeper core of who you are. Be willing to entertain different ideas, right? Be willing to accept the turn of the wheel. Keep that beginner's mind, right? That authentic self that is open to every and all possibilities, without any judgment, without any, without anything superimposed on it. Be willing to acknowledge that maybe there are certain aspects of your culture that are the mediating factor for your direct connection to your higher self, and how do you unprogram yourself? Those are really important questions to ask, and accept the turn of fate as an opportunity to really kind of break out of these imposed limitations, and letting Saturn, letting Saturn work for us, right? Again, don't let the transits work you. Work these transits. They are opportunities for growth. They are fixed points in time and cycles that if we align with them, then we are able to shoot ourselves to the moon, right? It's important that we realize that, instead of being a victim and being like, oh man, it's just like thinking Mercury retrograde is like, oh, don't do anything during Mercury retrograde. That's a really good example of letting yourself being controlled by the transits instead of you working the transits. This is why astrology is a fourth dimensional modality, right? We can move through time by not going anywhere, and be able to have some ability to actually be a conscious co-creator. So I love you guys. Take very good care of yourselves. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.